The Duality of Man, Dr.Jekyll's Descent into Darkness. In the foggy streets of Victorian London, where gaslight struggled to penetrate the perpetual gloom, there lived a man of science, whose brilliance was matched only by the darkness that lurked within his soul. Dr. Henry Jekyll, respected physician and pillar of society, harbored a secret that would shake the very foundations of his world and challenge the notion of human nature itself. Jekyll was a man of contrasts. To the outside world, he presented the picture of respectability: tall, well-built, with a face that inspired trust and a manner that put others at ease. His home in the fashionable part of London was a testament to his success. Its well-appointed rooms and extensive laboratory, speaking to both his wealth and his dedication to scientific pursuits. But beneath this veneer of propriety, Jekyll felt a constant, gnawing dissatisfaction. He was acutely aware of the duality within himself, the struggle between his public face of benevolence and the darker impulses that he kept carefully hidden. This internal conflict tormented him, driving him to seek a solution in the realm of science, where he had always found comfort. In the secrecy of his laboratory, surrounded by bubbling beakers and arcane equipment, Jekyll began to formulate a theory. What if the two sides of human nature, good and evil, could be separated? What if a man could indulge his darkest desires without fear of consequence to his respectable self? The idea took hold of him with a fervor that bordered on obsession. For months, Jekyll worked tirelessly, experimenting with various compounds and studying obscure alchemical texts. His friends, particularly the steadfast lawyer Gabriel John Utterson, began to worry about his increasing reclusiveness. But Jekyll brushed off their concerns too, engrossed in his work to pay heed to the outside world. Finally, on a night when thunder rumbled ominously over London, Jekyll achieved a breakthrough. With trembling hands, he mixed the final ingredients of a potion that glowed with an unearthly light. The concoction bubbled and frothed, emitting a foul odor that made his eyes water. But Jekyll was beyond such concerns now. With a mixture of fear and exhilaration, he raised the beaker to his lips and drank. The pain was immediate and intense. Jekyll fell to the floor, his body convulsing as the potion worked its way through his system. He felt as if he were being torn apart from the inside, every fiber of his being on fire. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the agony subsided. Jekyll staggered to his feet, feeling strangely light, almost giddy. He caught sight of himself in a mirror and gasped. The face that stared back at him was not his own. It was younger, smaller, with a lean, hungry look. The eyes that met his gaze burned with a malevolent intelligence that both thrilled and terrified him. In that moment, Edward Hyde was born. Hyde wasted no time in exploring his newfound freedom. He burst out of Jekyll's house, reveling in the sensations of the night. The cobblestones beneath his feet, the cool mist on his face, the sounds and smells of the city, everything seemed more vivid, more alive. And with this heightened awareness came an overwhelming urge to indulge in every vice and pleasure that Jekyll had denied himself. Hyde's first night out was a blur of debauchery. He frequented the lowest taverns, picking fights with men twice his size and laughing as he dodged their clumsy blows. He sought out houses of ill repute, indulging in carnal pleasures with a voraciousness that shocked even the most jaded of London's underworld. And when the night was nearly spent, he committed his first truly heinous act, trampling a young girl underfoot and leaving her crying in the street, feeling only a savage joy at her pain. As dawn broke, Hyde felt the potion's effects beginning to wear off. He hurried back to Jekyll's house, slipping in through a back entrance that the doctor had prepared for this purpose. Once inside, Hyde underwent another transformation, this one less painful than the first. Within moments, Dr. Jekyll stood where Hyde had been, shaken but exhilarated by the night's events. Jekyll was both horrified and fascinated by what he had experienced as Hyde. The freedom, the lack of moral constraint, the pure indulgence in it was intoxicating. And yet, the memory of the girl he had hurt gnawed at him. He resolved to keep Hyde under control, to use this discovery for good rather than evil. For a time, Jekyll managed to maintain a precarious balance. He would transform into Hyde occasionally, allowing his alter ego limited forays into the night. But each time he did so, he found it harder to change back. Hyde grew stronger, more dominant, while Jekyll felt increasingly weak and conflicted. The situation came to a head when Hyde committed murder. Sir Danvers Carew, a well-respected member of Parliament, had the misfortune of encountering Hyde on one of his nocturnal rampages. In a frenzy of violence, Hyde beat the old man to death with his walking stick, seeming to take a perverse pleasure in the act. The murder shocked London society and set the police on Hyde's trail. Jekyll, horrified by what his creation had done, swore to never transform again. He destroyed the special door he had created for Hyde's use and tried to return to his normal life. But it was too late. The balance had shifted, and Hyde had grown too strong. Jekyll found himself transforming involuntarily, often waking to find that Hyde had taken control during the night. The periods of transformation grew longer, and Jekyll lived in constant fear of losing himself completely to his dark alter ego. As Hyde became more dominant, those close to Jekyll began to notice changes in the doctor. His old friend, Dr. Hasty Lanyon, was one of the first to witness Hyde's transformation back into Jekyll. The shock of seeing this unnatural change caused Lanyon to fall ill, and he died shortly after, leaving behind a letter explaining what he had seen. Utterson, concerned for his friend and intrigued by the mysterious Hyde, who had been named in Jekyll's will, began to investigate. He pieced together the strange events surrounding Jekyll and Hyde, growing increasingly worried, as the evidence pointed to an impossible conclusion. Meanwhile, Jekyll's struggle with Hyde intensified. He barricaded himself in his laboratory, desperately trying to recreate the potion that would allow him to control the transformations. But the ingredients he had used originally were impure, creating a unique effect that he couldn't replicate. As his supply of the drug dwindled, Jekyll realized with growing horror that soon he would be unable to prevent Hyde from taking over permanently. In his final days, Jekyll penned a confession, detailing the events that had led to his current state. He wrote of the hubris that had driven him to tamper with the fundamental nature of man, of the initial thrill of becoming Hyde, and of the gradual loss of control that had brought him to this point. As he wrote, Jekyll could feel Hyde clawing at the edges of his consciousness, growing stronger with each passing moment. He knew that soon, very soon, he would lose the battle for good. With trembling hands, he sealed his confession in an envelope addressed to Utterson, entrusting his friend with the truth of his tragic experiment. In the end, it was Utterson who discovered the truth. Concerned by Jekyll's prolonged absence and strange behavior, he and Jekyll's butler forced their way into the laboratory. There, they found the body of Edward Hyde, twisted and still warm, with an empty vial nearby. Of Jekyll, there was no sign. The doctor had finally lost his battle with his dark side, choosing death over a life dominated by Hyde. Utterson read Jekyll's confession with a mixture of horror and pity. The document revealed the full extent of his friend's experimentation and the terrible price he had paid for his curiosity. It laid bare the struggle between good and evil that exists within every human soul, and the dangers of trying to separate these intrinsic aspects of human nature. The case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sent shockwaves through London society. It challenged the Victorian notion of the upright, moral citizen, suggesting that even the most respectable among them might harbor dark impulses. The idea that a man could contain two distinct personalities, one good, one evil, fascinated and terrified in equal measure. In the years that followed, Jekyll's story became the subject of intense debate in scientific and philosophical circles. Some saw it as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked scientific experimentation, while others viewed it as a metaphor for the dual nature of man. Poets and writers drew inspiration from the tragic tale, creating works that explored the themes of duality and the shadow self. For Utterson, the aftermath of the Jekyll and Hyde affair was a period of deep introspection. He found himself examining his own nature, wondering if he too contained the capacity for both great good and terrible evil. The experience left him with a more nuanced view of human nature, and a deep appreciation for the complexity of the human psyche. As for Dr. Jekyll's house, it stood empty for years, regarded with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination by the locals. Some claimed to hear strange noises coming from the abandoned laboratory on dark nights, as if the restless spirit of Jekyll, or perhaps Hyde, still lingered there, a testament to the enduring power of the doctor's ill-fated experiment. The legacy of Jekyll and Hyde extended far beyond the confines of Victorian London. It became a part of the cultural lexicon, a shorthand for the duality that exists within every individual. The names Jekyll and Hyde entered the language as descriptors for split personalities, or drastic changes in behavior. In medical and psychological circles, the case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde sparked new areas of research into the nature of personality disorders and the concept of the divided self. While the literal transformation depicted in the story remained in the realm of fiction, the idea that individuals could exhibit vastly different personas resonated with emerging theories of the human mind. The story also had a profound impact on the field of ethics in scientific research. It raised important questions about the limits of scientific inquiry and the moral responsibilities of those who push the boundaries of knowledge. Many saw Jekyll's fate as a warning against the hubris of attempting to manipulate the fundamental aspects of human nature. In the literary world, Stevenson's tale inspired countless adaptations and reinterpretations. The theme of the shadow's self, the dark side of human nature that lurks beneath the surface of civility, became a recurring motif in literature and popular culture. From serious dramatic adaptations to playful parodies, the story of Jekyll and Hyde continued to captivate audiences long after its original publication. As the years passed, the true story of Henry Jekyll and Edward Hyde faded into legend. The actual events became conflated with the various fictional retellings, until it was difficult to separate fact from fiction. But the core truth of the tale, the struggle between good and evil within the human heart, remained as relevant as ever. In the end, the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde serves as a timeless exploration of human nature. It reminds us that within every individual lies the capacity for both great good and terrible evil, and that the line between the two is often thinner than we'd like to believe. It challenges us to confront our own inner Hyde, to acknowledge the darker aspects of our nature, rather than attempting to suppress them entirely. For in Jekyll's tragic fate lies an important lesson that true virtue comes not from the absence of dark impulses, but from the conscious choice to resist them. The struggle between our higher and lower natures is what defines us as human beings, and it is in this struggle that we find our true selves. As London continued to evolve, moving from the gaslit streets of the Victorian era into the electric glare of the modern age, the tale of Jekyll and Hyde remained a powerful reminder of the shadows that lurk within the human soul. It stands as a testament to the enduring fascination we have with the darker side of our nature, and the eternal question of what truly makes us who we are.